Good morning, everyone. It is 10:07 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Economic Development Corporation to order. I apologize for being a little bit late. We're making sure we got quorum. And I appreciate everyone showing up to a 10 a.m. meeting. Blanca, if you could please establish quorum, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, good morning. Hiren Govin, President.
Present.
Roland Gomez, Vice President.
Present.
Daniel Dan Diaz.
Present.
Aaron Ronnie Rivera, Treasurer. Veronica Gonzalez, Director.
Present.
Sabrina Walker Hernandez.
Present.
Raul Resendez, Director.
Present.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you. If you could certify public notice as well.
The notice was posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act on September 3rd at 10:04 a.m.
Did we have anybody register for public comments, or do we have anybody in the audience or online that would like to speak towards public comments? No? Okay. Closing public comments. Moving on to our regular agenda items. Agenda item A, consider the request from Shane 8 LLC for incentives located at property 205 Conquest Boulevard.
Yes, this agenda item was brought back. It was presented a couple of meetings back to the board. This is for Shane 8 for incentive request of $150,000. We met with Mr. Casas, who's here present, to answer any questions that the board may have, and we did come to an agreement that it'll be $150 in incentives with upon documentation of issuance of certificate of occupancy, so the completion of the improvements of the Shane 8 St. Michael's, the shops at St. Michael's. He will have at least 20 retail spaces occupied out of 27, and he will create at least 20 full-time employees at $15 per hour, and the time frame for that will be 24 months from the date of the execution of this agreement. I did attach the design. He also redid the design. I know there were some concerns regarding the space, the office spaces for the incubators. So he did that as well. He updated that. And we also included a letter of interest for all of the tenants, a template that he's working on bringing in and filling in the spaces there at the St. Michael's, the shops at St. Michael's, as a template for you guys to see that he is working on filling all the 27 spaces, possibly more.
Excellent. Mr. Casas, did you want to speak on anything?
Good morning. I'm Hector Casas. How you doing? Here this morning, basically, I guess following up from our last meeting, I did do the change to see out there, and there has been, I've met with some people. We're looking at even a studio that's going to take two of this now redesigned spaces. We've got about, at this moment, probably about 20%, 30% LOIs already that are interested on coming aboard. On the LOI, we did put that they'll have at least one employee at $15 an hour. There'll probably be more than that. Full-time employees, probably a little less on there, but we'll have at least one at $15 an hour. I feel that once we get this thing rolling out there, I probably will be just upon the completion, and we should be 60, 70% sold out there. Just people out there. I think Dan was on there. I did one of the prototypes for boba tea that they should be hopefully moving in about 2-3 weeks. I've got the other ones that I can't move in until I actually do the structure, but they do have the LOIs that they're signing that they'll come in as soon as I'm done with the project. And so, go ahead.
Mr. Casas, you say retail incubator spaces. Incubator in the sense that, these are like startup companies that, are you going to be providing any training to them, for incubation services like Kaufman training or any other types of training?
We are looking at that because, in fact, good question out there. The first one out there is looking at saying, okay, I normally just get paid a draw. And I said, no, you need to get paid and go out there and save for retirement. You know, they're not even looking at that. So yes, that's something that we'll be working with accountants. I'll be trying to partner up with the city and the university to try to help these people grow out. I feel that most of these incubator spaces will be a 3-year. Well, they'll be. In fact, one of them had already told me. I said, yeah, I like the startup. I like the price, but I want to be in a standalone in 2 to 3 years. And that's where everything, I think it's going to be that type of business that it's going to be coming in every 2 or 3 years. I'll have new incubator spaces. I mean, new people in those spaces.
Well,
And
we're happy I'm happy to get my folks with you. We do actually provide some training, some incubation type of services. And so and for a lot of new businesses, that's what they really need to know how to get off the ground and really create a smart business plan, understand what they need in order to make their business succeed and get funding and that type of.
And you'll be surprised the amount of people that have a graduate degree that really don't understand that portion
Sure.
of the business. And we'll be able to guide them, try to get them up to get them to the right place so they can grow. Those are one of the things. And then we're going to be continuing the outdoor market to help these incubator spaces. Next month, we'll start it on a monthly basis, Saturday nights. We're going to be we figured out there that is going to be our best bet to go onto a Saturday night. Last Saturday, 2 weeks ago, Saturday, we had about 400 people show up to the actual market. We're doing one this Sunday, but we feel like the Saturday nights are going to be the ones that are going to stick on. So we're going to be looking at a market every Saturday night starting in October to try to help this business grow, because from there, that's where they're coming. We've got right now about 200 to 300 vendors in our list. Of that, if you notice out there, we only need 30 to 10%. So I feel like it's something that'll, be very well for the city and for everybody in conjunction here. Any questions?
Mr. Casas, the term of the lease is 3 years, correct?
That is correct.
When is there, and I guess with staff, I would like a copy of those leases once they're executed. And then, so we can make sure that the commitment of the 20 spots being leased or on record of being leased, to ensure that we stay with
And it is.
what we committed to on the
and
documents.
that's why that's basically what I did is I did a summary on the LOIs. It's just a small, and then we'll go into what I call a prepared 15-page lease, which a lot of people go out there, but it does have a lot of boilerplate that some of our attorneys put in. So, we will provide them as we are signing them up there. I'll provide the lease of record for the city to keep confidentially.
So what's the drop date of at least minimum of 20 have to be executed? Is it from the time we pay? Is there a date on that?
From the execution of the incentive agreement. So
Okay,
24
so once
months
we
out.
execute that agreement, we have to have 20.
Within 24 months.
He has 24 months to complete that requirement.
Okay.
Yes, and we will request documentation as part of proof to ensure that all the terms were met before we release or we provide the incentive.
Also on the full-time jobs, it's 20 full-time jobs, I believe you stated. That's on top. Obviously, the owner is not necessarily, that's already a created job, right? So it's the owner plus another full-time person?
It could be the owner himself at the 15. There'll probably be other employees that will not be at 15 or could be at 15. But what I'm putting on the contract and we stated on there is at least one one employee at $15 an hour. And
Right,
it could
so-
be the owner.
So that necessarily wouldn't be a new employee.
Well, yeah, it would be because it's a new
Right,
employee.
right, but if you look at the documents, it states a new job at $15 an hour will be created.
Well, if you're creating a new incubator, yes, it'd be a new job.
Yeah, so, and I don't know about making sense, but if the owner's already, if they're already out there with you right now,
There,
because they're moving from outside to inside,
Well-
obviously that's not a created job, that's already a
Well-
job in existence.
if you look at most of them that are outdoors, not to go out there and have the city go after them, probably none of them are paying taxes. Or very few.
Well, are you giving them a 1099?
On
The
not-
rental income?
No, for me, they're only paying me for the space.
Yeah.
They're selling to the public.
Right,
They're not selling to me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're only paying me $45 for the spot. It's like, what the city is doing on the other ones, those, can you check that all of them are employees? Probably not.
yeah.
I would venture to say that 99% of those are not employees because they're not companies that are registered. These are all now be companies that are going to be paying taxes, they're going to be paying sales taxes, they're going to, it's totally a new game when we put them inside. Outside, it's a one-day deal. They come in, they leave.
Yeah, so all these folks, and that'll be my final question, so all these folks would be DBA'd at the county and/or have an LLC or have, Because that's the only way they pay taxes.
And truthfully, they should be, even under their own name.
well, but
But-
you can control that, right? Because you can lease to only, which I'm asking, obviously, they should be, entity
Well,
that pays county, city taxes. They should be either DBA, LLC, or single member.
and if I'm not mistaken, looking at I think you as a person can be also paying taxes and everything as Raul Ascendis
Yes,
and not a
but you would have to
DBA.
go, you would have to go to the county to get an EIN and/or put your social security
But I think you could,
under a business.
but I think you can do it under Raul Ascendis and not a DBA.
Yeah, I can do it under the old Ascendus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so when you're asking me, are there
Yeah.
DBAs? I would say most of them, but a lot of them, in fact, most of them that we're doing right now are DBAs. The ones that we've LOI'd, they are already DBAs.
Is there
But
a
there
way-
might be somebody that just says, I want to do it under Hector Casas.
Is there a way to
And-
keep records of that? To see, is it truly an enterprise that's being?
This is Roland.
Yes,
I would say that if each person that is renting a space there would probably be required to obtain a business license or a certificate of occupancy from the city of Edinburg. And I would probably venture to say that if they do, they would require them to show proof of sales tax along with either a DBA or an LLC or some type of registry with the Secretary of State showing that business is a legit business.
great. That's
Yeah, but they'd have to go through whatever the city requires. That is correct.
One thing I didn't see on here was the hours of operation. Were you going to limit them to, 9 to 5, or can
We're-
each business have a different set of hours?
We're looking at Tuesday, possibly Wednesday through Sunday, and it'll be a 10 to 6 required hours. And then from there, it's like a restaurant or a coffee shop says, we want to come in at 7. They're coming in at 7 in the morning. Because that's when their coffee, basically, most of your coffees are sold in the morning, the majority. So, but they're required to be at 10 to 6, and then some, Casa Azul is opening 10 to 8, and then Sundays they're 12 to 6.
Yeah, that was going to be my question also, is that these aren't just, they're not going to just rent from you for $45 or whatever it is a month, and then be there one time a week, right? This is going to be an ongoing enterprise. It's going to be there on a daily basis, at least 5 days a week.
And that is correct. And when I said $45, the $45 is the outdoor market, which is not the indoor market that we're
Okay.
talking about. The outdoor market will be just a $45. They'd get a space for 5 hours that day, and they're done. You know, and that's going to be happening every weekend on Saturdays starting October. But we'll have an outdoor market and we'll have an indoor market.
So the indoor, you're charging them a lease payment every month. But, so I just don't want that where somebody puts up their storefront, but they're never there. I mean,
No.
we want it to be an active enterprise.
And I think everybody so do we, and everybody that we're looking at, that's what they want. I mean, they're not, and some of them that want to be the weekends, they say, we only want to be on the weekends. And those are going to be fine, they're going to be outdoors.
Okay.
Yeah, Veronica, to address that point, in the contract, it actually says, working a minimum of 32 hours per week.
Okay.
Per employee.
Right.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I got to go visit the Casa Azul when Ariane opened a few weeks ago, or I'd say maybe last week. It looks beautiful for that phase one that, I guess for the first part of this, and I'm hoping the rest of it turns out just as beautiful.
And from their perspective, what they planned to do in 1 month, they did it in a week. So it was like, they were conservative to begin with. I thought they were a little conservative when they started their plans, which is good. But what they showed me on the first week was what they planned to do in 1 month. And so they're very happy with what the outcome of that is. And they're just starting. I think it's just the room is just getting in there. So as long as we get more out there, more of the markets, this thing is going to start. It's going to snowball.
Excellent. Any more questions or comments for Mr. Casas? Nope. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Council, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the incentive agreement.
Excellent. I second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Casas, and good luck. All right. Moving on to agenda item B, our economic development workshop for our budget. Blanca, would you like us to move down there? Okay.
Yeah, we thought we'd do this down at the table. There's some coffee and stuff over there too, if you all want to grab that on your way.
Perfect. Sounds good. So we can just move down there a little bit more. Meeting style.
Roland texted me, I see Jason's Daily Hill.
John, you should have been here.
Oh, there.
do chicken wings deal for first responders, but somebody's doing one of the same days, so we're just joining forces for it.
Oh, that's good.
Are the kids back? They're
Yes, they're back.
campus, 100%?
They're back, yeah, some of the
I say kids, they could be-
Yeah, they are kids, though. But some of the professors are doing like hybrid, so that, like some days a week they're there in person, and some days they're there. That's worked out well for, so far, so good. We haven't had outbreaks.
That's great.
My son's class, they got sent home like
Oh, really? Oh. The public schools are right now kind of scary.
Yeah, I told him, you know, N95 is not symptomatic.
Right, great point.
I got
That's a good point.
I said, if I wore those masks,
They would,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
all the kids
You
should
know,
be
you're
wearing
right.
masks.
Yeah. Bring them in. Bring them
And so, that's the other thing. Yeah. That's the other thing. I've been talking about how my
Yeah, exactly, because you have to, yeah, and it's like you have to get how much you put your mouth on.
yeah, so because it's really everybody wants legal.
That's right. A good meeting is when legal doesn't have to say anything.
They're at risk. They're not.
I've got more, so we didn't move into our house 2 weeks ago. I just walked out and I'm, you know, and, I get so many texts, going to mine, saying, get my stuff. I see you, I'm trying to, and I feel like it's, you know, my customer, Sunday, I see you, can I join you? Yeah, come join me. But that's that people, it's awesome. Yeah. Great job on that. And the more we keep extending arteries of that,
That's exactly the plan.
it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can, it's just,
It's just a shame.
that was a home run.
Running between Jackson and Sugar, we just don't have enough. So we're gonna do actually, there's a couple of little landmines, the protection of the bike lane, but then we're going 10 feet from the Walgreens.
Awesome, great job with that.
You know what everybody keeps asking me? Are we going to do a sidewalk
Over
from the
the,
garage to the courthouse?
I believe it's TxDOT, and I'll leave it at that.
It would be about double the cost.
I know. I'm just telling you. Well, how are y'all going to get everybody over there? Are y'all going to do a bridge or anything?
Or a tunnel or anything else. Yeah. It's walking across, it's fine, yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
tell Elon Musk to do a tunnel.
You know who did a
He's doing
good,
a tunnel, right? He's talking about doing a tunnel. From
yeah,
Gaza
the Hyperloop.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's not Las Vegas where you have all the
Yeah.
crosswalks like that, and then you have the,
Moving sidewalks.
yeah.
Well-
It is so expensive. DHR tried to do one.
Yeah, I was going to say about 10 years ago,
It was too expensive.
yeah, we approved, the city approved that. I was on the medical advisory board.
cheaper for them to have the
Never
security there, is that corner, yeah?
We good to go? Yep. He's making sure, okay. Yep.
Oh, the county.
Okay. All right, continue on with agenda item 4B, our Economic Development Corporation Budget Workshop. Just for the record, Roland Gomez had to sign off at 10:27 a.m. Blanca, show is yours.
So let me tee this up for Blanca a little bit. What we wanted to do, the board asked for a workshop, so we want to keep this very sort of workshop format and conversational, which is why we formatted it this way. Blanca has prepared a PowerPoint just to structure the conversation, and try to order this a little bit. But at any point we want to break off into a discussion about any one of the topics, please feel free to do that. We're not intending to talk at you with the PowerPoint for the next 30 minutes, but we just felt like it would be a good way to structure it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Brian. So yes, thank you for being here this morning. I did create a PowerPoint, very high level for the board. We'll review all the big buckets in our budget, and then just for your information, in the next board meeting, September 28th, we'll discuss our annual report and our work plan for the next fiscal year. But we did want to discuss budget with you all. In front of you, you have a copy of the presentation, so you can follow along, or you can look up at the screen as well. So one thing that we're doing now, that after this year that we've learned about the budget and everything about the EDC and moving forward, we're going to call part of this budget the operations budget, which is the bigger buckets, the programs, projects, and properties. And then we're going to pull aside the bond projects. Those bond projects are being funded through bonds. So it's a different pot of money that the EDC already has set aside. So I'll walk through each of the slides. For the administrative services for fiscal year 22, it will be $1 million for the administrative services under city staffing agreement. This agreement will be presented in the next board meeting as well. And I did outline all of the services that the EDC is receiving from the city. In addition, we do have other key city staff dedicated to economic development, and they're outlined there as well. We have IT that supports EDC efforts and our staff, communications and media, engineering for all of the bond projects and more, appraisals, replats for properties, and other things related to projects. And our finance, we will have an accountant dedicated to our economic development, and legal as well, which is Omar.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few comments here, because this did take a little while to develop. Obviously, we wanted, in this model of having a Department of Economic Development, we wanted efficiency, but we needed to see where the resources needed to play out. So some of these are current, some of these are part of the budget for the city to add to there, especially like we're adding one member of the team to communications and media, specifically for graphic design and some of the social media things and things, just for economic development. So that's 1.0. It's part of that and then part of the others, but just wanted to say that we've kind of added positions to assess where we needed to administratively support. And if you look at that, that's what, 3.5 FTEs, that's a lot of support for a department of this size. I mean, like I told Blanca this morning, it'd be like if I, allocated 60 full-time to support Parks and Rec or something like it. Just, So, but it's a very vital part of telling our story and part of the department. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw it from the city side.
Hey, Ron, just a question. Are these, obviously they're internal staff. Now, are these going to be recruited that bring competencies for economic development, or are they existing attorneys and accountants and
So
already in-house
even
folks?
from attorneys, like, obviously the third of an FTE, that's Omar right now. We're actually increasing to that capacity because we're bringing in an additional assistant city attorney. So part of their duties will be helping support here. So yeah, no direct economic development experience. But again, like legal, that's a good example. I mean, Omar's well aware of that, and anytime it's outside our scope, something like real specific, like the Santana, something like that, that's when we would specifically contract for expertise. But those are rare occasions. But like media, no, they just need a graphic designer, and all the social media help and the pushing of the information and that kind of thing. So that staff is going to be real key. And quite honestly, when we sat down from a budgetary standpoint, Blanca had included that in her budget, a graphic designer in the kind of the EDC operation. And I told her, I mean, no, that's your department and should be supported as, that needs to come from the city's budget. And if you're saying that's what you need, and I agree, that's what they need, then, we added that from the city side. So that administrative service contract, and again, it's kind of a mind shift, obviously with the board, with us, with even here, like a little peeve of mine is that it still says EDC, and you're the EDC. That's the department. So we need to support it just like, Public Works, Parks and Rec, I mean, that kind of thing. So that's what was the advent of adding some of those positions.
With this being the first year, how do you feel like the value, the efficiency, how did it all kind of play out over the course of the year? Because I know we were kind of like, hey, let's winging it, for lack of a better term, and amending it as we went.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously a big part of the first year was rebuilding, and there's still, we're much better now, and I'm still proud of this. I know we're going to get into the report next month in terms of the outcomes, but efficiency, yeah, for sure. I mean, just in contracts, again, from some of the building of the structures, definitely. And, we're now excited on the city side, and something we want to talk here now. I know from the last workshop, we went all in with the downtown, which, I mean, we all put the investment where we said we would. But what really needs to come next, and we talked about it that day, and we're doing it from the city side, but the airport. So, and how, Brian being a conduit between, that and the airport, I think that's where we're really going to see a huge return on investment. I don't know if you were paying attention to the city council meeting, but on our budget proposal, which this was one area that I think they were well receptive of, the department right now is actually just a division. It's just a division of the city manager's office, which just kind of shows you from an org chart standpoint where they prioritize that. So I'm recommending we actually make that a department and bring in a department director on the city side. And that department director will also report to Brian, but that conduit between that future department director and Blanca, that's how taking airport operations and in economic development will really thrive. So I know I'm deviating, but it all boils down to running it more efficiently and not doing it in silos. So
Yeah, and on that note, I know you can't compare apples to apples because it's kind of a new way of doing it, but what was the budget like before when you were operating, when EDC had its own budget for the type of services that you're talking about here?
So we had, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but just from a salary standpoint, because we've doubled the amount of salary, at doubling the amount of salary, we were at the salary and personnel about the same. So it was relatively top heavy. So and that's just one line item of the big picture. But all of those were able to come down.
So we're getting more bang for our buck under this.
So, and quite honestly, we, when Blanca, that's why one good example, when Blanca says, okay, we need more, now that we have the website, and we have control of the platform to really make the website what we want, well, I didn't feel that they should contract somebody to do that. We have a, very viable department that's great at what they do. And if you need more resources to dedicate to this, which I think they do, that's why we added that position. So that's where that efficiency comes. That the city needs to absorb that because they'll work in a tandem.
So. That's a great question, Veronica. In line with that, Ron, in terms of differences, because we learned a lot in a year, right? I mean, things changed, and is there any particular line item that really stands out that the old way of doing it spent X in whatever it may be,
Yeah.
public affairs or marketing or trips, or is there any line item that stands out as a big shift, whether it's in mindset or just in what we do here on a monthly basis?
Well, it's a little difficult, apples to apples, just because of the pandemic. I mean, obviously, with the drop-off, no in-person conferences,
Yes.
very few trips to go out and visit headquartered operations were really welcomed. So I would hesitate a little bit to compare it, but I think we're going to have a much better comparison when we get through this next year.
That's true.
Because the world is slowly returning back to normal, and Blanca's got a full slate of conferences that she's going to be talking to you all about over the next 6 or 9 months. But that's been a huge difference. And the other thing, just to follow up something Ron mentioned, the procurement process in terms of efficiencies, it's a little bit of a trade-off. Working through a city's procurement process can be a little lengthy sometimes, a little lengthier than if you were just operating a private business or operation. However, in terms of the transparency, in terms of a process where you can stand up and defend it to anybody, there's a lot to be gained on that side by working through the city's policies and procedures. And so I feel like that, from an efficiency and just a transparency standpoint, that's been another area of, I think, significant improvement.
And that's where you'll get, some of those, you don't do just transparency just to do transparency. That's what builds the confidence in industry investment. So when industry knows, and we've had comments of this, when they know we operate under those standards, that's different. That gives them a whole other confidence than just saying, well, you can move more liberally and kind of do all these things, so that pays other dividends, not just for the feel good of actually being transparent. So, but I do want to answer your question, because one perspective that always stands out to me is, I really like the policy that this board put together. Obviously, Brian and Blanca drafted a lot of this with the incentives. That has led to a decrease in the number of smaller incentives. Because quite honestly, the applications we're getting are kind of self-filtering to the standards we put in place. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because but then you can look at, okay, we're not doing the little, I'm talking, 10,000, 5,000. The big incentive we did this year, the huge one, from a return on investment, was DHR 380 agreement. And I think it's important to note, that was 100% funded by the city. Part of, those are the types of investments that the EDC probably should do. They're the ones, all the data you're looking at, substantial investment, $10 million was the city portion of a 380 agreement. With the amount of investment that they're doing, close to $100 million, and the type of just other ancillary, we'll start drawing a profit on that $10 million in about the 9-year mark. But, we're talking tens of millions of dollars of economic impact. So, part of the reason, we didn't even approach the EDC is because we know from the finances that this was not, you don't have the money. You don't have the money to do something like that. But those are model investment types. But it takes a while to build your savings to do something like that. But, when you look at all the value of the incentives, and so that's the way I see the response to your question. What was the shift? Does it cost you more money? Yeah, you go from maybe $100,000 incentive to a $10 million, which is, but when you measure the ROI, it's transformative to the community. That's where the EDC kind of needs to live. So, but it's huge investments.
Okay, moving on to programs. Our priorities outlined here are workforce training program, marketing, research, and a small business program with the American Rescue Act. So that will not be EDC funds. And in our work plan, we'll outline each of the programs within each of these bullets. But just for your information, last year was budgeted about $865,000. And this year, we were able to learn from the programs and what expenses were made. We were able to budget $650,000 for this fiscal year.
So just in terms of what's changed, and again, we'll get into this in length during the regular meeting this month when we talk about the work plan, but from sort of what we thought was going to happen and then what actually happened over the year, the workforce training, we just haven't done as much there as I think it was originally anticipated. And a lot of that was on the demand side. I mean, I think, some of those programs just didn't really see the demand from students wanting to do them. And so that was sort of a lesson learned, I think, that we can apply for thinking about the work plan for this year, because if the board does want to stay actively engaged in workforce development, we should kind of think of a way to shift the focus a little bit.
And Brian, do you see the shift? Obviously, we have one of the greatest resources here, Veronica, at the university. How do we partner up with them? They're our educators. They are the lead resource. Because we don't have to be the person doing the training development. There's competent folks, companies, nonprofits doing that. We just had a brief conversation earlier about AARP and what they're doing here. Didn't realize that. One of my tenants, AARP, not the insurance company, but the entity of the federal government funds them to retrain and teach folks 55 or older who've lost their jobs and have to retrain to something else. So there's entities that will do it much better than us, right? And then probably at more efficiently and at lower cost. Not that they'll take the burden of the cost at the university. Obviously, they're burdened with everything going on as well. But how do we? They're the bright educators and the professors and they have the departments in place.
We do. And actually, like any large entity, you sometimes have silos and one person doesn't know what the other one's doing. But I can tell you that we have, aside from all the economic development offices, which are your Veterans Business Outreach, your Small Business Development Center, your incubator, your data office that you've used. We also have the continuing education department, right? So they provide a myriad of services in every industry you can imagine in terms of continuing education or education training. So we can line those up. I think what we need to know is where is the demand, and what industries have the demand, and then we can connect the right people to do the training to that demand. And also, I think apprenticeships are something that we should really be looking into as well as an economic development arm, because we see employers talk about how they'll hire someone, but they really don't yet. They have to train them significantly before that they get a return on the investment on the employee. So the internship programs are a really great opportunity, not only for the trainee, the student, but also for the employer that then is going to get someone that can get to work right away. And so I think those are really valuable, and there's some really good programs out there on what people are doing, and we could probably do something like that here.
Yeah, I think the last thing we want to do is duplicate anybody's programs. Mm-hmm. And so where the EDC can make a huge difference this year, if you remember back to the 2019 bonds, we still have a chunk of money in there for a capital project, not really programmatic dollars, but to do something on the capital side. So that's an area where I think we could really make a big impact this year, because that's the outstanding bond project from 2019 that we still haven't addressed. How much is that? How much is in there?
1.4?
8, yeah.
1.8.
Yeah, even with the adjustment, that's what, yeah.
I want to add something to what Veronica said, because when I read job training and I hear everybody talking about it, I'm like, well, let's not train the wrong thing that's not in demand, right? On the healthcare side of things, you struck a note with me when you said internship, because everyone that goes through any sort of formal training on healthcare always has to do a sort of internship. It's usually about 30 days. And in those 30 days, the facility knows whether they want you or not. So I think that right away I thought, well, we need a program where we could provide internships for businesses. Give you an example. Every restaurant here in town does not have enough people. Well, if we could provide a month of internship where instead of training them, we'll provide the paycheck to this guy or this prospective employee to go to an internship, and they can decide whether they want to keep them or not. At least we help them with the workforce, and they get a potential employee. So it doesn't really have to be a specific program. Let's feed them out into our business community where they can do these internships
Sure.
and get hands-on, and maybe then we know whether they need further training or might get a job, and you're helping the business at the same time.
And I'll give you an example. We have, it's still a very new program, but we have the hospitality and tourism program at the university now. That's a degree. And so someone like Huron, could say, I want a certain number of students to intern in my hotel. And it's a great experience for the students to really get hands-on experience in learning how to, and then also bringing the new, what's new in the industry, right? And what they're learning in school, because we all become outdated in the sense, and we have to learn new things.
That was
and so,
in school, that's not how it really works.
Exactly. And so bringing what they are learning also now to the industry. And we would love to have those opportunities for students in all the different colleges. College of Engineering, you've got students who are able to now create a lot of things through 3D printing and things that maybe a business would need, and they're not used to having that. So I think there's a lot of good opportunities there we can explore.
And we save money by not training someone in something that they never really wanted to do. They go out, they get trained, they go do it, and I don't want to do this anymore. But if we could create a pool of prospective employees, we pay an internship, and you immediately impact the business because you're providing manpower, and then you know whether they're going to keep them or not, and the person that is in the program will know, hey, I don't want to be a waiter. I don't want to be because like all these restaurants, you see all the owners working, and they'll tell you, I can't get anybody to come work. Maybe we can help them that way by having a program, an internship program.
And fundamentally, there's already, the city, what you guys did a great job with the Spark program. So Spark 101 or 103, where 103 or 10.1, where it's specific to just the internship.
Yeah.
You don't get the money, across the board. You get it specifically for a particular trade or business.
Yeah.
And we know, obviously, we go do our due diligence on a particular employer, make sure that it's for the right reasons. They have the capacity to train and develop and do all those things. But that check will go to them.
Right. But what I'm saying, Raul, is like, what a great resource if any business in the city could call EDC and say, hey, I need 2 construction guys.
Yeah.
Can y'all provide 2? And we'll
Yeah.
30 days or whatever. Or I need 2 waitresses, or I need 2 cooks.
But there's a difference there, though.
And we'll have a
because
list, and we send them, and you fund them.
Yeah, but
instead
that's
of having
kind of
training.
work on demand. This is more, the business truly, we have to do due diligence in the business, that they're really there to mentor and train.
Sure.
Because I could use people all day long, and, okay, I just need them just to my daily course of business.
Right.
That's generally not going to favor the employee or the trainee.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
So when somebody calls construction and says, hey, I need 2 people, that's probably not the person for this role. It's truly somebody who wants to take on mentorship, internship,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
and find that their whole focus, the ends is that trained person internship, and they can stand by that. Now, 10 years later, they're owner of the company,
Yeah.
another company. They open their own company.
You're exactly right. Yeah, the state agency I worked for, we facilitated at that time the Texas Workforce Commission job training program, and it has to be a partnership, because unfortunately, I saw this with the state, when we were too aggressive with it, unfortunately, what the businesses were doing was just getting free labor. And, their first 3 to 6 months would get paid, and then they would fire them as soon as they had to foot the bill, versus a cost share where you phase out and you know, that kind of.
You got to have skin in the game. And we always tell that to people when they call and they say, hey, I want to get an intern, but they want to do it for free. You know,
Yes.
don't they get some class credit for it or something? I'm like, you get what you pay for. And if you take a student for free, you know, first of all, these students need money. And so they would rather than go get a job working at McDonald's than they would going to work for you because they're not going to get paid. And, you know, it's the students whose families can afford to fund their lifestyle that can do those, and there's not that many. So you really do have to pay. And plus, when you're paying, you know you're going to put skin in that game, right? And so we need for it to go both ways. And
You're right. So me mentally, I see owners in restaurants serving people, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I can't get anybody to work, and that's what I'm thinking. But you're right. Some other people might just take advantage of the free labor.
You know, something we have to do, and I hate to say it this way too, but we have to start driving wage standards. You know, Chick-fil-A is not having issues staffing their restaurant, and they pay the most.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're having to do that as a city. We're having to bring certain levels of positions higher because they're starting to leave to other cities. So that's a good thing for our community, you know, because you keep driving that. But, I mean, the living wage right now is right at $13 an hour or something like that.
The average hourly wage in this area is about 18 an hour.
Average hourly.
Average hourly.
In our area? Right?
Yep.
That's surprising, but, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely gone up quite a bit. And then speaking of the Texas Workforce Program, we've had paid, I guess the Texas Workforce asks you, who do you need? They pay for them for X amount of months. I think it's 3 months. But you have to meet criteria like, hey, train them. They need to learn these kind of things. They need to have a second person with them always. And we've been fortunate to find, like, I think we've hired at least 12 of the 20 that we've had.
That's good.
And one of them actually became a manager, and then she stayed with us for about a year and a half. And then someone poached her and took her, and she's like, well, you know, they're going to make me, you know, an assistant manager. I was like, go ahead. I was like, this is the goal,
Point, yeah.
the whole point, right? Like,
Working out.
Like you're supposed to move up, and I was like, as long as you're not going lateral, I'm fine. You should be moving up, right? And that's the whole course, right? You know, you shouldn't be here at the front desk for 10 years or whatever. You're supposed to be moving up, and so that's the reason I like this program. And you kind of stole Blanca's thunder for the next meeting. She probably had all of that written down somewhere.
We like to call that excellent staffing here.
So Blanca, you'll have an easy time on that one.
With a complimentary board because we're bringing it up.
well, and I like the marketing aspect of it too, because the reality is in today's world, it's all about branding and marketing, and people have to know what you're doing, and you want to show success, right? So, but it's hard to do when you're working all the time. You don't have the time to promote because you're too busy working. So you need somebody that's dedicated just to your marketing and to really making it a point to let the public know what's available, what's out there, and what are the successes.
And I'm glad we really took a whole year to get the website, the marketing, getting a lot of this stuff together. So we worked out the kinks kind of behind the scenes to where when we launch it, it's all going to be in unison.
And now that we have the platform, the staff can control it and organically grow it. I do want to, just going back to that capital project for workforce development, just two places that we kind of land to, and part of why we haven't really brought that up hard is because I think, you know, what we really envision that capital project to be is some direct conduit resource to an industry. I mean, the dream is like you land an industry, and then that's part of we build a training facility or whatever for that industry, something very specific. But two things that we land on, I don't know if you realize is happening, but at the library, and that's just because of the proximity. I think there's strategic location there, but, you know, the workforce is down, and they're going to be expanding the workforce, so we're glad that that's happening here and not losing that resource. But, you know, the library is kind of, in the dense part of town, it's kind of opposites. So the workforce uses our library as kind of a satellite. And, it's pretty active over there. There's a population of the library, folks that use the library just for workforce and job kind of search and things like that. So that's one area that I think we'd like to expand later. Maybe use it, we've talked about maybe use that for a grant match for an expansion. The other thing, again, is back to the airport. I mean, I think that's a golden opportunity to marry some kind of, improve infrastructure, but bring some kind of training program to the airport that would lend to our industrial park, because we definitely have the space. And I think an anchor training facility would bring other industry, for sure. So just to keep that, and that's where our mind has always shifted to, but we still have that available.
Oh, so I understood for the airport, you wanted something there to help expand the airport. You're saying something to expand like the industrial park area?
Well, I think the way we see it is some kind of marriage of those. That if you, again, with the logistics of the airport, you put a training facility there or some kind of industry training program, I mean, that would serve as an anchor there, but that could be like the FedEx. So marry our industrial park with the airport. I see those as a grouping. I don't see them as
the last board that we were on, I always made it known that I wanted to concentrate on the airport, and through research and talking to people, I came to find out that the funding available for airports is really based on touchdowns and takeoffs. And right now we've only got certain entities that employed there, and I brought up an idea that didn't gain traction. Well, now we have somebody from UTRGV here, but I just sat there and thought, I said, well, why don't we talk to UTRGV, see if they could put together some sort of a pilot program
We looked into that.
where they could do their takeoffs and landings there, and that we would raise those numbers, and now we'd have more access to funding. I said it about 4 years ago, but
It was actually explored, and
Oh, it
we,
was?
we actually had significant research done on the different types of programs. What's very expensive is that as a university, you have to have simulation equipment, which is very, very costly, and then you have to have airplanes so that you can do the hours, right? And so that, we can't build in those costs in the tuition because it would be too high. So we just have to find a way to be able to manage that, because there's a desire to do it. But Dr. Bailey would love to have a plane to get, from here to there all the time. He's having to go all the time all over the place. But the reality is it's very expensive in terms of simulation.
well, the ROI on something like that would be immense because we'd expand our airport. Does it cost less than $4 million? 4.4 million?
Does the military takeoffs and landings count, and do UAVs, helicopters and all that take off?
At the time, I know it's, I talked to some people on the board in Austin, and I think Terry Canales is the chair now.
Transportation.
I think he got put on the airport, something,
Our city airport advisory.
right?
Oh,
Oh, something in Austin, I think. But anyway, at the time, it was just mostly DPS and other law enforcement agencies we had there. This was, of course, pre-COVID, so I don't know what the numbers look like now, but it's got to be consistent. And the whole premise was that the number of takeoffs and landings will give you access to more funding to develop it, because it takes a lot of money to widen an
That's
airport.
that's one metric for the TxDOT funding model. But again, back to that, you got to give them a reason to land. So, and industry and logistics, I
Right.
mean, that,
So back then I said, why can't we have the larger FedExes or whatever land there? And they were saying, well, because we don't have a big enough airstrip. Well, the way
chicken
you
and
get,
egg.
the way you get, chicken versus the egg.
And the
Well, the way you get
difference-
it bigger and funding federally is more takeoffs and landings.
And you really perspective, Harlingen Airport's a very small airport, but you would think it's a huge airport based on marketing.
yeah.
Right. And what they've done with Marine Military Academy, TSDI, and the aeronautics, they've kind of built that area as truly a hub for air.
Right.
And FedEx is there.
Yeah, you're right, because they have the air shows and
And if
everything there.
our airport is very desolate, And you really don't know there's an airport unless someone tells you there's an airport. So, from a cargo, obviously the building of big warehouses and, how do we make it attractive for folks to contract to be out there? I think is important, but it's kind of desolate. It's kind of out there. We know it's out there, and sometimes we just passed it, and you really don't know it's out there.
So this is actually a good segue into the next topic of property, because an area of need that we just simply don't have because it wasn't built up over the years with the EDC is any existing warehouse for spec. And so I don't want to cut this off, but let me suggest we kind of move the airport discussion into the regular meeting later this month.
So
because
let me just say this before you continue. So back then I went on record, we kept talking about the industrial park, and I was saying, I don't want to touch the industrial park. I want to touch the airport so we can offer the industrial park to the airport expansion. But that was going to take forever, and that would take, God knows how long to expand it. That way we could offer the industrial park. So that's why at first when they were talking about selling, and I was always like, no, I want to sell it. I want to offer it to the airport people.
I think if we bring the types of industries that would then appeal to, or needing the airport more, then,
We'll just have to expand it.
yeah, then we would have the expansion
Yeah.
of the
We
airport.
need to see it as one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But so before, when they were talking about, let's sell this, I'd be like, no, I don't want to sell the airport. I want to fix the airport so they can use the industrial park. But I was kind of alone on that. So,
Yes, segueing to properties, purchase of property was a clear priority to the board this fiscal year, and will move into the fiscal year 22. So we made that a priority number one for under properties. And we still have a building that we own, 1710 South 28th, that needs improvements, maintenance, and repairs. So it's part of our new fiscal year priority to ensure that it's repaired, painted, fixed, air is working properly, the roof is fixed. We do have some tenants there. We have 4 tenants right now. They're paying rent, and we're going to revisit their lease agreements this month so we can start the new fiscal year with updated lease agreements moving forward. Last year we had a $227 budget for this priorities, and we've upped it to 1.2 this new fiscal year, just because property is, I know, something that we did this year. We want to continue doing that this next fiscal year.
And I'm personally a big believer in this. I know Roland also is too. I think he alluded to it the most, that a lot of dealerships are buying up our highway frontage between Trenton going north. So we need to get to it kind of before other private entities get it, because we all know that most dealerships tend to hold it 10, 12 years just because they have the land and the capital to do it. So we may not be able to develop ourselves.
Yeah, we've alluded to that strategy, for lack of a better word, just kind of land grab, so that we can be in the driver's seat for leveraging that. But and that's kind of what we've kind of leaned to. Some of those big ones, though, they're just immensely expensive. But I mean, we'll continue to do that. Prime piece of property.
Well, in every city, that is really looking to develop a certain area. I'll give you Brownsville, for example, is doing a whole downtown revitalization, right? But you got to have the properties, because if you decide that you want to revamp the whole downtown area, and yet you've got somebody that owns the properties and doesn't want to sell, you may be stuck where you just can't do it. So we're looking at downtown development. We want to make sure we have access to the buildings to do the type of development that we want to do.
Yeah, it's a balance. It really has to be strategically done, because we can't afford to take something off property tax rolls and hold for 20 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
it has to be a pretty quick shift. So you are kind of playing a risk a little bit too, but yeah, with as fast as the way the city's growing, it's definitely a good risk.
Maybe just between Brian, Blanca, you guys, like, hey, this area, we see in the next 3 years is going to be
Yeah.
a hub, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, we're looking at it that way, kind of like what we just talked about, the hike and bike trails. You could see where there's, as long as you data map it, you can see, well, okay, that section, that. We're kind of doing the same thing with real estate. So we know where the growth is coming. So.
Moving on to projects. This past fiscal year, we had 9 incentive projects that we budgeted $1.5 million for. We've completed some of those, and we still have 5 incentive projects, including Shane 8 that was approved. And that has, but the budget for that is $442,000. Something to note here is that we've budgeted $500,000 for incentives for any new projects with job creation. Last year was $300,000, and we've upped it to $500,000.
So for the work plan discussion later on this month, I've asked Blanca to prepare a report of all of the incentive applications that have come in and are actually screened out. So you can see the demand for incentives and the fact that most people just simply aren't meeting the job creation standards that we've put in there. And so I feel like the policy is doing a good job. But that's probably important information for you to have when you think about what you might want to do on the incentive budget, because in a minute we are going to get into a discussion about our savings strategy and what you want to do with unrestricted cash. So just know that you'll have that additional information later on this month.
And great point, Brian. And that's why we have to be steadfast in ensuring as a board that if we approve a project, that we not look away when they do not meet those job expectations. Mm-hmm. That's been my biggest issue, is that we've looked away too many times when somebody did not meet a certain criteria. And, okay, let's forgive them, or let's... Sure. In light of us saying no to so many, because of the job creation, they weren't meeting it, then we need to hold very consistent. If they did not meet it, that they don't earn, because we said no to too many people.
Yeah. And not only the job, so I guess in any parameters that we set, whatever they may be, that we hold them to those accountabilities. So I know some of them may not have the job criteria. We may have,
Yes.
The construction amount
sure.
of value and things like that. Whatever those criteria may be, we just hold it to them.
And part of that is on us. Just I'm really proud, not only the team here, but you guys for two major rules. Number one, keep the agreements clean, because if they're very straightforward, they're easier, that there's no ambiguity on the compliance. But number two, golden rule, and thank you guys for keeping, but nothing up front, ever. So, and we've stood to that, and because the risk should not be on our shoulders. It needs to be on the person doing the development. We should supplement that, not endure the risk. So.
Agree with you on that one. And then on this budgeted for new projects, I'm hoping with the incentive plan that much more come in and get filtered through and all that. So could we maybe have it reviewed every quarter? So maybe say, hey, look, we used $300,000 already in Q1. What if do y'all want to add more? Do you want to just so we have more for the rest of the year?
Moving on to our debt service. This past fiscal year, our debt service was $3.1 million. And after our refinance of the 2015 bonds and the other debt service we had, it has gone up to $3.6 million. And we have an increase of $484,000. We did get the new Series 2021 bonds for the downtown ACE building and the parking garage, which is included on here. Any questions regarding our debt service? Okay, now moving on to bond projects. These projects are funded through the bonds, the different bonds that we have. The total amount for the 2019 bonds are $8.3 million, and that includes El Tule, the Resource Workforce Training Center that we've talked about before, the Capable Kids Park, and the Beethoven Park. And then the $9 million for the 2021 bonds for the A Center and the parking garage, which is the first floor for the EDC.
And later this month, we'll have the amortization schedules for these bonds, so you can get an idea of when these start rolling off.
And then you'll, like you were saying earlier, that this will be now a separate budget from our operations, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I can present on that quarterly, so I can update you on progress and expenses for that.
Excellent.
Yeah, and a lot of people have asked me about these new bond projects and all, and I keep stressing to them, there isn't going to be any raise in taxes. It's projected with sales and current sales tax revenue. They're like, well, you guys are going to raise the taxes when this happens. I'm like, it's not happening. So for the record, no raising in taxes.
Yeah, the refinance of the Santana debt the outcome of that was really good. And so, I mean, if you look at the net increase for everything, for the return we're going to get for the new debt, when you factor in that savings on the Santana refinance, you know, to get all that for a net increase of what, 400,000 that we can easily absorb into the budget I feel like we did some good work there this year.
And then again, even conservatively finishing off this fiscal year, we'll be at least at 13% growth of sales tax. So that'll be just easily absorbed, the percentage-wise.
So this is a summary of what the budget will look like once we present that to you the next meeting. We have a total operating budget of $7.6 million. We do have $7.7 million in projected sales tax revenue. And in conversation with our finance director, we projected conservatively a 3% growth for next year, but it's expected to grow more, as Mr. Garza mentioned. But we wanted to be conservative and do a 3% growth.
Yeah, we did that across the city, and that's just from a collection standpoint. Unforeseen things. 3% is extremely conservative, but for budgeting purposes, we feel good about that number.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, our debt service is going to be $3.6 million, and approximately $6 million in unrestricted cash at the end of the year, and this is projected. This is where the recommendations come in for under our unrestricted cash. Again, in conversations with our finance director, it was recommended to keep 6 months at $600,000 of projected sales tax revenue per month in our unrestricted cash. So that will leave some monies available for the board to decide what to do with that money.
So 3.6 million total.
Correct, for the 6 months. And one thing to consider, so the new refinance for the Santana bonds does not require a reserve account, but in our perspective, for best practice, we'd recommend that we create a 1 year of debt service reserve account for the Santana new Series 2021 refunding bonds. And that would be about $1.3 million in the reserve account.
Can we put that in an interest-bearing CD or something that gives us some decent return? Or put it in something else that, I don't know, money market or something like that. This way, we have the money there, but it generates some kind of money to lower our liability on the other end.
Yes, we can look into that. And then the bond projects, the 6 bond projects that we'll be hopefully doing this fiscal year, 2022.
So the first thing we'd like some feedback on is the 6 months. Finance director recommended 6 months operating, basically 6 months of sales tax collection, so 3.6. So what do you think about that? I mean, is that you feel like that's about right? Do you feel like it's too conservative, not conservative enough? Do you have views on that?
I'll go back to my dad on this one. And it saved our butt in COVID. He has instilled in all of our businesses always to have 6 months in reserve. Whether you make $0, you can survive for 6 months paying everything, everyone. and I think last year proved it more than anything that we needed it. We probably went through about 3.5 months of it without having, without, realizing that we're so lucky to have the reserves. So I would say 6 months is not conservative,
Minimum.
but accurate, like it's good.
Yeah.
I will piggyback on that. In the world that I float in, they say 6 months is the minimum, but I tend to always like to double that for operating reserves, just because you just, like Hiram said, you just never know what's going to be happening out there, and that's kind of what I maintain with the organization that I ran.
I agree with that. I'm really conservative when it comes to that, so
Yeah, me
it just
too.
makes you feel a little bit better.
I'm okay with making it more, but definitely not less.
One thing, kind of tying into incentives, like, 500,000 is programmatic, but I hope, either this next year or the following year that, we'll have an opportunity for another big one, and 500,000 will not do that. So having this does lend a little bit to that, but, obviously something to look at is the debt service as well, and, there's all different ways you can play this, but I think it's just having balance is key.
Yeah, I think if we were to go 9 months, it eats up all our money
Yeah.
completely. In fact, it goes over. So 6 months is probably a reasonable amount of time. But, as we grow, as the sales tax continue to increase, I think we increase that money that we
Yeah,
set
we're going to
aside.
increase the unrestricted cash balance because we're only
Sure.
factoring in 3%
Yeah.
growth, and it's unless
Yeah, I was going to say that'll grow respectively.
Yeah, and then we could put more
As we
away.
grow.
Yeah. And that, I'm assuming that 6 months will be floating. If it pushes up higher or goes lower, we can adjust it accordingly.
We can.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's all we prepared, right?
It's just a debt service. We can revisit that. That's just an idea, just for best practice. Again, the refunding of the new Series 2021 bonds does not require a reserve account, but we do have one for all of the other bonds. So I would recommend we create one, maybe something to consider for either next board meeting or the next couple of months.
With the city budget, we did that. We have a capital operating expense, so we took an average year and just set aside one full year of that payment. So just as a practice of operations. So that's what I think Blanca's referring
So
to.
that's not included in this 6 month?
No.
No.
Yeah, we should read that also.
Yeah.
But again, interest bearing, something that yields that.
For sure. Even on our 6 months, if we had it, at least in something where we could pull the money out if we needed it, but if it was generating some kind of interest, at least it's not just money sitting in the bank.
Okay,
Making
well,
us money.
when we prepare the budget, we'll start with 6 months sales tax set aside, and then we can discuss whether or not we want to move that up, and then a year of debt service, and show you what that looks like. And then we can make changes if you all want to do that when we do the budget later this month.
Are we allowed to, I don't want to say it this way, like invest in mutual funds or stock markets or things like that with our reserve money that have higher returns?
There's certain restrictions to that. It's usually like a tax saver type account. We can research all the options, and we can present anything that we can compliantly do.
It's like putting in the S&P, like.
Yeah, that would be a
it
pretty
goes up,
conservative.
it goes up 15% on average, like that kind of stuff. I just want to know what we can do if there's a portion of
We can
it.
get some guidance on that.
Anything that the city's seeing that, from a planning perspective, that in light of what's happening with COVID, that we're preparing for? Do you see the city closing up again, or any of that discussion going on in light of what's happening?
It's one of those, obviously, there's responsibility. That's why even from the city budget, all the American Rescue Act, we are looking, and I'm glad the council has supported me on this, but really looking at resilience. So And not just COVID. I mean, look at from the last year and a half has been hurricane, winter storm, COVID. So, and we have vulnerabilities in those areas. So some of that was technology that we did up front, and the good news is that for the most part, I mean, about 85% of city operations can just go mobile from a continuity pretty quick. So that's good. But, things like water plants, more backup in electricity, things like that, they're heavy investments. But they're needed. So we're doing that strategically. I think the same thing goes for, if you're looking at that from an economic development standpoint, we've always looked at sustainable economic development, but I know something that EDA, even prior to this year, I mean, for years and years and years, they've had resiliency in their vocabulary of economic development. So every business model that you choose to support needs to be, especially now, we've learned the biggest lesson. Like, through fluctuations of life, will your business model still, continue? And that's the way you need to look at it of who you choose.
And the reason why I ask is if you talk to realtors and you talk to developers, their coin phrase now is COVID resilient businesses. Mm-hmm. That regardless of what is out there, it's a business that will continue, regardless. Yeah. And so it's not indoor markets. It's what will sustain regardless of what virus is out there.
Exactly right.
Will continue to sustain the model.
One thing I got to hand it to all you guys is that over the last year, I saw the pivot immediately. Like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that, help the businesses do this. They need this, and this, and let's get them that so they can continue, which was great. Like, I've heard it, I guess, sitting on the chamber, we hear, you talk to a lot of the business, like, hey, thank you for this. The Spark program's helped out a lot. I hope we have the little ticker on who's spending what on the Spark this year, because we didn't have it last
gift
year.
cards were just about to start, so we haven't even infused the cash yet. So that's where the controlled madness comes into play, but that's where we really see the spike. So we'll start seeing that next month.
Well, and one of the things to being resistant, right, is also broadband. And that's something that I don't know exactly what Edinburg is doing in terms of long-term. I know some cities have done the Wi-Fi towers. Others are actually doing the fiber, the infrastructure. But that is something that so many businesses are reliant upon, especially in times where you have to shut down for a certain reason, right? But you can still do sales online. Yep. And if you don't have the access, then it makes it very hard. So that's quite an investment, I know, but it's probably something that's worth it in the long run.
Yeah, that's a good idea. One other thing that just came to mind, we were moving so fast, and we didn't want to encourage large gatherings last summer when we did the gift cards. So we really, we brought business owners in to do the 3 o'clock update here, give them a little feature on the city's channel, that kind of stuff. But we want to make a bigger deal and celebrate more this time. So if you have ideas for how to do that, and I know you all are active with the chamber too, you can talk to Ronnie about it. Let us know, because we do know. It's a little scary maybe, but we can track each one of those cards, and so we'll know instantly where people are spending money at the businesses. And so we did a little kind of top 10 list last summer, but we didn't do anything in person. We never went out to any of the businesses and really celebrated. So if that's something you have ideas about, let us know.
And that's where marketing comes in, and that campaign of, at minimum, having the Chamber of Commerce businesses, at minimum, have boards on, posters or what have you on their front doors. We take in smart. There has to be kind of
we have a sticker that's
true, not just we're giving it. Okay, where do I go now?
Yeah.
And it should be for everybody, and it is for everybody. But definitely starting at the chamber should provide. Hey, we are a supporter of this program, and we take just like you have EBT or Lone Star card. We take Lone Star. How do we? That's that marketing phase of it.
Yeah, they have the window stickers that basically they accept Spark. There. Just this, again, we heard a lot of comments at the arena event, some of them, I hadn't even thought of this, but I got a couple comments of, why are you making us go accept this in public so that people can see?
That's what they told me.
They told me that ahead of time. When they got there, besides the money, there's like, wow, I see why you did this. I mean, we have so much appreciation. You just extended some appreciation to us, which I don't think we've ever heard that from the city, So the sentiment outside of the dollar amount, and that's, we just wanted to celebrate it for them, but they really did feel appreciated.
And I'm gonna be honest, I was a little bit wary about it, and then after I went there, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I think so many of us got out of the social networking
Yeah.
mindset, and we were there, and you're talking to people, hey, I do this, I do that, you're exchanging cards, you got back to the core principles of business, which worked out pretty well.
And that's why I asked earlier,
I
but
had a couple people
because,
tell me, I don't want to go there so they can see that I needed the money.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
I got that.
not about that.
Yeah.
But, and the reason why I asked earlier is because, it's COVID is 3 times worse right now, right, in terms of,
Yeah.
and I've been invited to more galas, more that's coming up, more, nonprofit stuff. Society's moving on. It's not stopping.
Yeah.
And so,
On the medical side of things, there's, and for me too, you get COVID fatigue.
Yeah.
You get all the gloom and doom.
Yeah.
But there's huge differences now.
so I think we're going to finish strong.
Yeah.
The year, I really believe we're going to finish strong and then continue 2022 strong, hopefully, even in light of what's upon us. It's here.
Yeah.
And on the Spark promotion, maybe after hearing the numbers from last time, what if we get the businesses to create a competition, say, hey, look, you know what, this is your Spark ticker, let's see how high you can get it, see how many, and then maybe, I don't know, the number one person that gets the most, we kind of go there and have a
Yeah,
plaque or
I'd say
something, I don't
you
know.
have your top 10
Yeah.
businesses that are frequented by the Spark shoppers, and then you do something for those, and then you have some kind of an incentive thing for the top 3, maybe.
So the other change we're making, which is going to be pretty fun, if you're a giant nerd like I am, we worked with the gift card company this time, so we could actually track which cards are assigned to which households. So we'll be able to actually provide some kind of value-added analysis to a lot of these businesses, if they want it, about where all their customers are coming from. And so they can use that market research. It's going to be free
Yeah.
market research
Direct
for them.
mail
And
or
so
whatever
I've been
they
talking
may
to
do.
Blanca about how we can offer this as a service to local businesses after we're finished with Spark. We're basically running an experiment.
Sure.
Right? And it's gonna really deliver a lot of value-added data when we're finished with it.
And with that, I know, with the chamber, we have our Google AdWords, for the chamber itself. Maybe we can use that data, because I use it to where I know that businesses are coming from Austin, Dallas, and I spend my money there now because I know where my guests are coming from. So the same principle. So maybe we can figure out ways to use our own internal marketing and ad dollars to target market some of our.
Edinburg book. It's on Facebook.
Yeah. Somebody said something in terms of resilience that, these businesses, the small businesses that didn't have the resource, the ones that adapted, really, it paid dividends like you couldn't believe. On the other side of the spectrum, because we, with this connection of Spark, we've been able to build better relationships with these smaller businesses. Some of them just need tremendous amount of capacity building, tremendous amount. So, and they would benefit. It's almost common sense to us why they're not kind of investing in things like that, but they're good at their product. They're not necessarily good at the business model.
That sounds like a good project we do service learning classes, right? So where the students are doing work on the ground. And maybe you have a computer science class where the students are out in the community helping to develop the computer skills for companies that don't, a lot of these small mom and pop companies really just never did that. And so maybe that's something we can do through class learning.
Yeah.
I think if we taught every business owner Excel, it
Yeah.
would help them leaps and bounds. Like, because I create my own, do formulas, and you're basically just, all my data gets populated and correlated for me. So
Yeah.
I think that'd be something very good
Then
for most
things like
business. Yeah.
QuickBooks and things that people, a lot of times,
Yeah.
don't know how to
A lot of
use.
people don't
Yeah.
know that their product costs $1.52 and they're selling it for $1.50.
Yeah.
And it's like,
You're losing money.
you lose it,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, little things like that. I think that would, I mean, that's only, and a little investment there is just going to generate more sales tax, you know?
And yeah, it's better for us.
I mean, we
More
would bring up
profitable
things, I remember one particular one where the social media site, it was just like, just your mouth would water. But I told the individual, you never put what it actually is. Like, I don't know what to call an order, you know? So you just can't show him a picture over the phone. So, and he did it, you know, and they did little things like that. But they're just not, it's just a different perspective.
Talking about labeling the boxes.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we did, you know, on another thing is we did a kind of a picnic drive-through with staff where we bought $10,000 of food from, it was like 20-something businesses. We call every small business restaurant that would be willing to do it. And we said, you know, this is for you to kind of market your thing. And I think it was only like one or two actual restaurants actually put what a sticker of what it was. Everybody else was, wow, this is delicious. I wish I knew where it was from.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they just missed the point of that.
Yeah, this is your chance to advertise.
Yeah. So that's where Spark, honestly, has been so great because, and we keep hearing stories, people were walking around with a list, calling, like, what do you guys have? And, you know, it made them walk in the door, and they liked the product, and they have repeat customers. And that was the key.
I know the 311 app is not meant for this, but what if, you know, for the gift card portion of the time, we add, you know, a Spark button to show you, hey, this is where we're going, or this is what's available, or something.
Yeah.
Maybe able to click on the restaurant or something of that nature.
The list or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. We can, because it is a network. And this year, you know, with the more time we had, we strongly over and over encouraged all businesses to sign up for the actual acceptance of the card. Do you have those numbers yet? So was it 473 businesses? Of 473, how many are doing the gift card? About half. So that's
About
much
half.
better than last year. Last year, it was only about 100. So we've doubled that. Because it was, I mean, the sales tax was for them.
Yeah, I know one particular, it wasn't they went into at minimum a written gift card. At least they're starting slowly.
Yeah.
They might not have the capacity to get the plastic one, but at least they went out and
Their own little,
and did their own. Okay, next step, I'm coaching. Okay, next step.
Yep. They'll get that's that capacity
No.
building. Yeah, for
Correct.
sure. So.
I have a question. Would a small business summit be something that we would be interested in doing? So if you do like a small business summit where you bring people in together for a conference or some type, you can do series around social media engagement. You can bring in a facilitator for that. You can bring in a facilitator for how to do your business plan, and people can sign up for different sessions. Is that something that would appeal to the target audience of the small business owner that you're talking about?
So the Chamber's done a series of those over the course of the years. It was mainly for, you know, Chamber members, and Ron did a good job this year of giving everyone the list of the Spark, and we had like a drive.
Digital training also, we did that.
We had like a membership drive to where we were calling the Spark people who weren't Chamber members and trying to get them involved as possible. So hopefully we can build on that and get more of
But
these.
sometimes people don't know
What they don't
or are
know.
afraid to broach topics that they don't know. Could that be something that you incorporate in the Spark, in accepting the Spark, that you will be required to attend this?
Well, that's a good idea, because what I was going to say is a lot of times it's the people that most need it that won't do it, because
Right.
they're like, I'm
They're
so busy, I don't have
intimidated or
time, and they don't realize
full of-
that they're working harder, not smarter, and they, you know, so they don't go. But yeah, I mean, if you could say to them, if you want to get X, you got to come to Y, then that
We
might.
talked a
that
little
might
bit
work.
about that. I think maybe what we can do this year, kind of like we did that kickoff at Bird Ogden, do it at the very end and let other businesses talk about their success stories, mostly of adaptability and resilience, how they decided to do this, or, I go back to, and it was pretty immediate. Denny's was the first to jump on submitted for a permit application to build in a drive-through window. And then you look at that Senor Cactus. I mean, that's
He
one.
spent 2 years with UTRGV, Senor Cactus.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, yeah, they spent,
With the SBDC and.
yes.
So he'll be the first to say that without Spark, they probably wouldn't have. They launched right at the peak,
Right at,
and Spark came in right at, and they were one of the top, and yeah. So
But
The
I will
nice
tell you
patio
guys,
helped them out
I went to
tremendously
visit them
too.
before they opened. I know the owners, one of my managers is family, and we went in there and talking to the owner. He told me he spent almost 2 years with
Wow.
UTRGV.
Yeah, we have through our SBDC, we have the trainings, and then we've done a lot of restaurants that way. They actually have the food, what do they call it? It's the food entrepreneurs, but foodpreneur or something, conference, right, every year. And you see all these different vendors, you didn't even know that they existed, and they come in and they learn about how
But
to.
I truly believe, and I haven't talked to him, and I'm going to just to ask this, but I bet in because he started right when COVID hit. He opened the doors and it was, oh my God. But I bet you said resiliency earlier. I believe going through their coaching and mentoring and that business plan and going through I would bet money right now that because of that influence that UTRGV had with him and that development of culture,
the foundation
up
was
front,
there. Yeah.
allowed him to prosper during these trying times.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely.
And so that encouragement, as Veronica said earlier, about how do we encourage them to, here, we're going to give you this, but please attend this as well.
We
And
can
Sabrina said
do
it as
the
well.
training,
Yeah,
so you don't
that's a
have, the
good
city
idea.
doesn't have to put it on at your cost. I mean, we could just say that you have to go to the SBDC, or if you're a veteran, you can go to the Veterans Business Outreach Center.
That might, yeah.
But you make it, you give them a list. I think whatever the top priorities are right now in marketing a business, is it social media? Is it doing a business plan? And they're required to attend 2 out of 4 or 1 out of these 4 lists, something, but it needs to be tied into the spark. Sometimes you have to force people out of the comfort zone.
I agree with that.
Yeah, last year we did the Get Digital with UTRGV.
The digital.
That was a follow-up, and we're having a second follow-up, hopefully in this fall with them. And we can look into the Small Business Summit with Ronnie as well.
Excellent.
So we don't have anything planned for executive, so unless there's anything else, I think we can wrap up.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything? No? All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Indulging the 10 a.m.
You're welcome. Y'all